Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Thursday GT4 Championship brought to you by RCI. I am Ryan Mawson, joined here by Christian Stricker and, as usual, Mike Jones to bring you all the action of this very dimly lit Bathurst. We're at the mountain this time, the infamous track, one of probably the hardest on the calendar for the drivers and even harder in these GT4 machines. And well, we've said it all season. Is there any track that possibly Tiger Lima could be beaten at? That 101 has been phenomenal all season long, but possibly the mountain might just be the time where we see the Porsche falter.
Yeah, we've been looking through the practice session and looking at the times the drivers are doing it. So far, it seems like it's between Hardwood and Harseford, who are the two top drivers. Obviously, Harseford and Mercedes, showing mega pace during this stint in the practice times, and Hardwood as well in the Alpine with a 2:12.8. It's nice to see an Alpine on top for sure, because I believe it's my favorite GT4 car. I really like the way it drives and also the way it looks. So gonna be cheering on Hardwood a little bit here, but also we did a bit of calculations before, and what was it, Ryan? It was 57 points between Lima and the overall victory. So he just needs to score 57 points more than Martin Lawrence in these two rounds, and then he's gotten the whole championship in the bag.
Yeah, and that will be definitely playing on his mind. 57 points between him and basically mathematical winning of the championship. But yeah, the 507, the Alpine, very strange car to drive. I will say that the Alpine as well, it has its own handling characteristics. Whether you're a fan of them or not is an entirely different question. And the 20 of that AMG, it's definitely the AMG's day to shine. It's where its bop is most favorable. But in the race as well, I do expect the BMWs to be quite a threat, because half of your time at Bathurst is over the mountain with the very tight technical twisties. That is where the Alpine really comes into its stride. You can watch them over the mountain, how their middle sectors are absolutely blazing. But such cars like the BMW, your AMG, possibly the Audi as well, all those are the straight line monsters. And well, if you're a tiny little Alpine and you come onto one of these humongously long straights, what really are you going to do? The BMW is not that much slower than the Porsche GT3 car in a straight line, to put into perspective of how fast some of these GT4 cars can shuffle. And that is a big, heavy, old-style touring car.
Yeah, it's actually quite an amazing fact right there. As GT4 is almost the same speed as a GT3 down the straight line. But also, one thing with the Alpines is it's great for one lap performance, but it does suffer over a whole race stint, whereas the BMWs seem to be favorable in the race stints. So if the BMWs can stick with the Alpines or the likes of the cars that are slower in the straight line, like the KTM as well, if they can just stick behind them and onto the straight, they can get an easy overtake in. And it will be even more difficult if the Alpine is going to try and overtake a BMW, because they won't really have any chances apart from if they make a mistake in the mountain. But even then, trying to overtake in the mountain section is super difficult. So I think the race is going to be very difficult for these slower speed cars for sure. But I think the quali will be able to set them high up enough in the grid so they'll be able to have a defending chance.
Yeah, and that will be half of the problem. And the Porsche as well, we can't count that out. Tiago Lima, we've seen before in practice where maybe he hasn't been way up in the pole sections, and it comes to quali, and really, I think it might be a bit of some drivers, they never want to show exactly. You never put all your cards on the table before playing poker, do you? Though Tiago Lima just keeping his cards close to his chest and really going as Barazagi smacks it off the wall coming up the mountain. I think we'll be seeing a lot of that today. It's easy enough to do it in a GT3 car where you've got the downforce, you've got a little bit more grip. The GT4s really do like to, they are more understeer prone. They do like to wash out. So I expect quite a few taps of the wall today. So some dented and bruised cars. And the other thing as well, the front engine cars like to understeer. The mid-engine GT4s like to snap oversteer on you. The Alpine, if you bottom out that suspension, you will be facing backwards very, very quickly. So you've got to somehow hang on. The two remaining Alpines that we've got have got to hang on to their cars over the mountain and then somehow go down the straight. But as we come up to quali, we'll see what all these drivers can do. Fairly heated today as well. 28-28. still fast track as well. So I expect these times to be coming down a little bit more. And well, I won't even be surprised if we might even see a low 12, maybe an 11. It really depends if the quali session is nice and cold to us. And as the number 2 crosses the line, that will swap our sessions over, and into qualifying we go.
Yeah, I think this can be a very interesting session to watch indeed. As a Bathurst, I think, contrary to popular belief, I think it's a very difficult track to overtake on, to be honest, unless you are a BMW trying to overtake an Alpine or something along those lines. But I feel like the racing generally is quite static. You don't see many attempts for overtakes. So I think quality is going to be very important, especially for these smaller engine cars, let's put it that way. And Thiago Lima, first guy out of the pits, you were saying earlier how in practice he always seems to be a little bit slower, but I have a feeling in practice he might be doing race pace practice and the others might be doing quali pace. And if that's the case, he's only about, was it 8 tenths before we swapped over to the qualifying session he had between him and P1, and he usually always leaves a little bit extra as well in there so he can prove himself as the championship leader and why he is the championship leader every single time in qualifying. But we see him zooming through the mountains at the moment, and that Porsche just looks so planted and just ready to take on this whole race.
Yes, and qualifying extra special in the GT4 Cup because obviously we only have one qualifying session, but 2 races per each sort of race weekend, if you will. You have the 20-minute sprint and the 40-minute feature race, but it means that if you qualify on pole, you will be on pole for the 20 and the 40-minute. So qualifying just that extra bit sort of important to all these drivers, no matter where you are, you need to get that qualifying out early and be able to zoom up the road. And yeah, Bathurst is a lot of the times a race of attrition. You see a lot of overtakes where people have made mistakes, and it is very easy to do anywhere on this circuit. And I even think that we might have a few mistakes coming into the braking zones. These cars are very, very different on the brakes versus your regular GT3 counterpart. And while coming round the final corner, it's Tiago Lima to take us round the first lap. And off we go, coming into turn 1, also known as Hell Corner. And well, I always say that at the start of the race, it's kind of a bit like hell. All the cars are bunched up here, nowhere to go. You're always trying to get that little bit of a better exit. And now up the long old straight, you can see you got to really rev this engine out. The little flat 6 in the Porsche, using everything that it's got. And I mean, you basically have time to have a cup of tea, read, think about what you're going to do over the mountain in a GT4. Hard braking into what is turn 2 off camber. You've got to be careful not to run out and touch this wall. It will creep up on you. And then we come up to the cutting. Blind left-hander, incredibly difficult as well, because you can see through our splitter camera that the camber changes all over. And then coming up around the mountain, once again, blind right, which leads into a very sharp left. Quite a lot of drivers will touch the BP Ultimate wall. And now you're looking for the grate, which is your turning point. Hard left, and another wall that you do not want to run out into. Coming over to Skyline, probably some of the hardest points on the circuit. The sun glaring in your face there, making it just that little bit harder to get down the mountain. Now you're fighting the weight balance of the car down the mountain into the dip, which is another point where you can lock up a couple of wheels and it unsettles the car. All kinds of funny. And now into Forest Elbow, tuck it in nicely and run it out wide for the best launch onto Conrod Straight. And another thing then, Conrod Straight, you have to get the run out of Forest Elbow correctly to just gain that few kilometers an hour speed over the person behind you, especially in qualifying. And looking at the track map, I would say a lot of people are actually in some of the slower cars trying to use the toe of some of their bigger, faster counterparts, and braking now into the final few sections of corners. Another set of really, every corner on this track really is very blind and quite technical when you look at them individually. And coming up to the last corner, Tiago Lima will set the provisional pole. And what will it possibly be? It will be a 2:13.032.
Yeah, it was a very exciting first lap, to say the least. And I think some of the cams that the broadcaster, Mike Jones here today, is running, it just shows you how this track undulates and the different camber each corner has, and just how difficult it is to get a corner right and just string a whole lap together without making any mistakes. And I think Thiago Lima has a great start, as it doesn't seem like anyone's able to challenge him, at least not in their first run. But only so far, we only have 8 people who've crossed the line, and Thiago Lima is still leading by quite some margin, to be honest. He is on his second run as well as a few others, and he is a little bit positive as well. But here we are, riding on board with Harzeford, who was one of the, I'd say, favorites from practice. He's struggled a little bit throughout the season. I think sometimes he was maybe in the top 10, maybe top 5, but he's never really challenged for a podium here in Pro Class. We see him weaving down the straight. Maybe he's trying to warm up his tires a little bit longer. I believe this might be an outlap then, if that's the case. But here we go, coming into the fast left right-hander section. You've got to be late on the brakes, but not too late, as you'll be overshooting the corner. Get the power down as early as you can. Run the car as wide out as possible, and then this corner as well is very difficult. If you touch the inside curb, you're going to really unsettle your car here. But see what he does. He doesn't touch it, so he pretty much nails the exit here. Gets onto the start-finish straight, and I believe he's going to start his run now.
Yes, it looks like that was an outlap, so Harzeford, one to watch possibly, but I think the times are going to come down and down. The GT4s do not run tyre warmers, so these cars will take maybe a lap or 2 laps to get up to optimum temperatures. 30 degrees C ambient and track, so it's not exactly a chilly day. You're definitely going to get some heat into them, but with 3 minutes 40 left on the clock, I mean, like I said, some of these drivers are now only just coming out of their outlap from the pits, and with the quick fire qualifying that we run in this championship, you really sort of realize that you've done 1 lap and you think, oh heck, I've only got 3 minutes, I better get a shuffle on, and there we go. As I was thinking, we'd see the 12s, a 2:12.876 from Thiago Lima. So the times are coming down, but what can the Mercedes of Harzeford do? Possibly the favorite with the balance of performance that this car has. It is incredibly quick, but obviously having a quick car is only half of it. You've got to have a driver that can drive it round.
Yeah, for sure. We see Martin Lawrence running a little bit wide there on exit. They're just trying to push the limits of this car and the track, but he is close to being able to take that pole position. He obviously has to do everything he can to try and take the fight to Thiago Lima as he's coming across the start-finish straight, and he does take P1 provisionally with a 2:12.84. So there's only about 3 100ths in between him and Thiago Lima, but that could be huge if Thiago Lima doesn't improve. As I'm just looking at Lima's delta, and it looks like it is a little bit in the red. So there could be a bit of trouble for Lima here, as he might only have 1 more lap left to do currently, looking at the qualifying time. But here we have Harzeford sending it down the back straight, deep into the braking zone. Someone's gone off there a little bit, kicking up some dust. There's a nice tight corner and gets a great exit as well, using all the track that he can. He only has 1 more corner left to go. This could be very tight for the provisional pole as he breaks deep into the final corner, gets on the power early towards the start-finish straight, only gets P7 though. So I think he's still warming up his tires, and he has shown he has much more pace, but he only has 1 more lap to prove it.
Yeah, final lap for Harzeford. Obviously, that was a 2:13, and we've seen him in practice into the 2:12s. And we talked about this with the little Alpines in sort of practice and early on in quali, and that is so basically textbook Alpine driving. You unsettle the car through the dipper, and off it goes. They just snap on you instantly. The front engine cars, like we've seen of Martin Lawrence going wide slightly at the chase, they are much safer in GT4 form. They just wash out wide a little bit, but the Alpine is a really knife edge car. It's either happy or backwards, which it makes it just that little bit harder. And I've seen a couple of Alpines do an endurance race here before at Bathurst in RCI, and when they were going, they were amazing, and then you would see the car backwards, which is kind of Alpine life. I think they're either really on it or not. But as Martin Lawrence comes through the chase, might just sneak in 1 more lap as well if he can't. The traffic is moving out of the way, so that should not affect him. And through the last corner, will this be an improvement? Looking on the Delta, it doesn't look like it, or it might be a slight improvement. It was a ever so slight improvement, a 212.786, which brings the gap up to 0.6 of a second, and or 600ths of a second, I should say. And Tiger Lima is in the pits, so he has. That's it. Tiger Lima can do no more, and Harsford moves up to P3, only 4 tenths off.
Yeah, that is I think it looks like Martin Lawrence is a provisional pole, although Hardwood is up on his lap. I'm looking at his delta now, but it doesn't look like he's far enough up on his PB that he's able to challenge. But he is improving. So with that little Alpine there, we have said before, don't discount them yet, because through the mountain section they're absolutely rapid. And if he gets a great exit at Forest Elbow, it looks like
he's got a bit. He is up.
It does.
He's moving up down the line. Could this be it? Could this be an upset to the pole position? The little Alpine that could. We haven't really seen anything from these cars all season. They've always just had either some problems or they've been too far down the back of the grid. We saw some pace from them at Brands Hatch, but a few incidents here and there sort of put the Alpines out of it. Coming to the last corner for Harwood, turning in, you've got to get the power on early of that little 1.6. What will it be? It will be pole position by 1.5 tenths of a second, a 212.963. But once again, Martin Lawrence now, he is miles up on his delta. He's almost 0.4 of a second up coming out onto Forest Elbow. As long as he can hold it through the chase and through the final corner, that will be an immense gain for him.
Yeah, Martin Lawrence just improving his time after every lap. And now it looks like he's got, as you said, 0.3 above, but it is very easy to lose the car in the chase. I see what he's able to do. He's deep on the brakes, gets the car turned in right. A little bit wide on exit, though. That could cost him a little bit of time, but it might not be enough. Could still be able to knock Hardwood off pole. It's going to be super close, and it looks like he does dive into pit lane, so he's made a mistake there through the chase. As I said, it's a very difficult corner, and that is his lap over. So it looks like Hardwood is going to be taking pole position for this race.
So there you go, the little Alpine that could on the pole position. Now it will be for both races, but that big one BMW of Martin Lawrence right behind, which I have a feeling we're going to see very much in the race. The speed difference of tiny little handling car versus the big almighty BMW in a straight line. And well, we talked about sort of standings and who is mathematically possible. I think we might have them for you.
Yeah, that's so we just pulled the standing up. As you can see, Thiago Lima has a huge lead over Martin Lawrence. Martin Lawrence only has 57 points to play with until he loses out the championship. But quite some margin back is Andy Boardman, followed by Svenchek, Billy Octane, Dario Bazagi, Hardwood, who got pole position here today at Bathurst, and then Chris Rubelar, Laura McLaughlin, Floris Harseford. We have Andre Picher, Neil Pimlott, Miguel Nito, Marco Correa, Urton, Banfield, Roth, Van der Niet, Linnard, Apostel. As that rounds out the Pro Championship. And you want to take the silver one?
Yeah, in the silver category, a lot of these drivers we haven't seen today at Bathurst, possibly just taking it as one of their days off. So Shelgren leads it with 597. You have Amir Thacker, Cyanide, not here for this race either. Sam Butters is the podium places. Olefe, who is here today, will be gaining quite a few positions in his championship. Rob Franken and Borodai, Jackson, Tom Bryant, Nicholas Grabau, and Phil Roberts are your top 10. Luke Wigg, who we've sometimes seen great things from as well, in the 11th place with 341. Verona, Palmer, Huford Smith, Dauber, Rosso, Gleason, who was one of the Maseratis that we saw from earlier on in the season. Opera, the 59, which once again we still have not found how to pronounce his name properly. It's what did you say it was last week?
Remishewski.
Yes. And that's pretty much it. A lot of the other silver drivers we've had races missed or problems. So that's sort of the back half of the season. We're really down on the silver drivers, but who dares on the mountain may win. And well, in that a lovely shot from our drone camera. With the pitch blackness of an early morning at Bathurst, the vague few lights that you can see, apart from the giant city of Bathurst, obviously. But on the track, no floodlights to speak of at all. You're going to have to very much rely on your endurance lights and on your high beams in these little GT4s to even see where you're going. And now zooming down onto the grid, bit of a smaller grid than we started out with, but look at some of the machinery that's here. Plenty of interesting cars to talk about. And my thing that I'm going to love to see is how long can that little Alpine hold it versus the giant BMW?
Yeah, I think it's gonna be matter of 1 or 2 laps.
I think it might be 1 or 2 corners.
Yeah, we could see if, depending on the start that Martin Lawrence has, Hardwood could be challenged into turn 2 already then. And if he gets ahead, then the Alpine, all he can do is just stick behind the BMW because he can't really overtake over the mountain section. All he can do is just stick behind and cry as he zooms away down the straight. So I think Martin Lawrence would be wanting to get a brilliant start here. But then again, it is Bathurst. It is a tricky turn 1. It's known to cause a few incidents, so anything can still happen. But I'm pretty sure if Martin Lawrence gets the start he needs, it will be within 30 seconds that he is to P1 position.
Martin Lawrence basically just needs to play it safe through turn 1 and use where his car has the advantage, which is the straight line of that BMW. I don't really think that the Alpine, unless the BM has a very bad first corner and is pushed all the way to the outside, I don't think that the BMW will be able to, or the Alpine that will be able to really hold on to it. I think it's Martin Lawrence's race to lose, and that'll be that's a weird statement, saying starting from P2. And as everyone flicks on the lights, it's almost time to go green here, going for the warm-up lap. Not much of a warm-up needed as well. 27C here, even at 5 in the morning. It shows you how hot Australia is through the day. I mean, I'm pretty sure you could cook an egg on the surface here when it's actually boiling. And a fast track as well. That'll give some of the drivers just that little bit more to think about as well. Not optimum conditions yet, but we could see it actually swap sort of mid to the end of the race.
Yeah, and I think the fast track's definitely going to play as a larger disadvantage for the likes of the Alpine and the KTM, maybe even the Audi, as they tend to be kind of unstable and oversteer, as you mentioned earlier, and it doesn't take much for the Alpine to be facing the wrong direction. So we'll hope that they can drive according to the track conditions, but as you said, it'll probably be optimum, at least by race 2, if not halfway through race 1. As race 2 is in I think the early mornings of the beautiful Mount Panorama Mountains. I think sunrise will already have happened by then. But for now, race 1, it will be complete darkness with a hint of sun at the end of it.
Yeah, around about 5:30 is when the sun starts to rise here at Bathurst, and then race 2 we should see a lot more light. But I mean, look at the track, which is provided lovely by our drone cam by Mike Jones, expert piloting over here. You can't see anything basically, and the closer you get to the car in front, the more that nulls your headlights, and you're just looking at the back end of the car. You're driving this entirely off your muscle memory. It is such a scary track in the night, which is always whenever I've done endurance races here and the team say, do you want to do the night shift, the answer is usually no, Tar. I will at least if I'm in the daytime, I can see the wall that I'm going to crash into. I don't just randomly crash into the wall and think, oh dear. At least I can see where I have gone wrong. And especially coming down this down the dipper, it is just absolutely terrifying because you can't see anything.
What's even more terrifying is sometimes the wildlife here gets onto the track. I think the race we had last year in the 12 Hours of Bathurst, the safety car was pulled up because a kangaroo was leading the pack.
Yeah, and skipping the pace car.
Everyone had to adjust their pace to the kangaroo. So we probably won't be seeing any of those today, but that's just another factor to think of when racing around this mountain, as it is darkness. Animals like to jump out in front of lights, and it doesn't take much for for you to accidentally hit one. But hopefully none of that will happen today, as I do believe Animal Control has been around the area scouting, looking for any potential threats, and there hasn't been any. So it will be most likely just a race between the cars today. And I think it's going to be a good one as well, as you start race 1 in the dark and race 2 will be in the sunrise. And I think Bathurst is one of those places where it's just, I think the scenery really adds to the atmosphere of the race. And I think that's also why I consider this my favorite track.
See, this is the kind of realism that we need, Kudos. We need kangaroos and other sorts of associated wildlife. But then again, it'd just be boring in England because you wouldn't have anything nice when you go race at Brands. You just get seagulls that fly in front of your car. You won't actually get anything sort of interesting. But lining up 2x2 now for the first race, the feature race of, well, the sprint race, sorry, of 20 minutes. And then we go to the 40-minute feature. 20-minute mad dash. And they definitely have been some mad dashes before in this championship. What can happen? I think that it's going to be Martin Lawrence's race to lose. But what can Tiago Lima do? He wasn't that far away in the qualifying, and he has shown some immense race pace before. And as you've seen, we've already got one person off. That is the 499, a little KTM of Luke Wigg, just taking a little bit of a probably an unscheduled detour across the grass at the chase. He was just checking that the grass was all good for us over there. Just had to do a last-minute inspection of the grass, but it was top-notch. So thank you to Luke Wigg for that moment. And well, rounding the final corner, here we go, 2x2 for the GT4 Championship at Bathurst in the dark. What can the BMW do, and can the Alpine hold on to it as we go green? And you can see immediately the Alpine needs to defend that. Tiago Lima looking up the inside of Martin Lawrence. Just about sneaks in front, does the BMW. Little Alpine trying to run away with it as behind us all matter of... Well, in fact, no, actually, that's a surprisingly clean start. I was going to say all matter of hell has broken out as like a pun, but it hasn't.
Yeah, it's a pretty clean start. I saw Boardman going up the inside of Leffler. They're just taking that position instantly. You see the difference between the Mercedes and Alpine down the straight. And how the Alpine was sort of in the clutches of the Mercedes. Harsford making another position there on left, obviously not for in class, but it is nice to try and get ahead. But I think it looks like Leffe has managed to outbrake him into the second corner, but we'll have to see. Is that Billy Octane we're running with?
That's the 33 moving his way up the field, it looks like, though, from where he started. The big V8 motor that we often talk about, trying to bully his way up the field. And that car must be, it's a big old brute, isn't it, to haul around Bathurst. And it's weird, the Camaro, because it's not, you would think that it had all the straight line speed with how much displacement that has got. And actually there's one off. That is Harzevord. Harzevord takes to the runoff area and just about gets it around the dipper, still too wide. We can have a quick replay of that. What happened here? Was it an outbreak?
Just looks like...
He did, he touched the wall.
Yeah, he touches the wall entrance.
And that is so easy to do in the dark when your only vision is illuminated by your headlights. Anything to the immediate left and right of you can be completely blind. And here's what I was saying about Martin Lawrence blasts past the Alpine like it's nothing. Can the Alpine come back under braking? He's trying it as the 507, but the door is slammed completely shut. You can see, look how close the little Alpine can get in the corners, but it's just all for nothing by the time that you've got to the straight line. So Harwood back down to P2, what we thought was going to happen, and Tiago Lima now licking his lips thinking, tasty Alpine in a straight line.
I mean, the French are known for making good food, so I'm pretty sure that Lima would like to take that P2 position right there. But Lawrence, as we expected, making the move down the long straight, and now is just blasting away from Alpine. But I do think that Hardwood is able to catch back up again in the mountain section, but it's not going to mean anything because he's just going to lose all that time he gained down the straight again. So Martin Lawrence doing what he needs to do to try and keep his championship hopes alive, even though they are quite slim, but mathematically still is possible. So you see Hardwood going a little bit deep there, actually, a little bit wide on exit, and that's allowed Tiago Lima to try and maybe make a move somewhere, but he won't do it as he is a very smart driver. And Hardwood, I think he's just pushing the Alpine as hard as he can because he is getting pressured by Thiago Lima from behind, who's looking like he wants to take the challenge to Martin Lawrence.
Yeah, you've got to try get everything that you can out of that Alpine. Obviously, Harwood, we've seen any a good result here will really help his championship, which he's knowing. And Thiago Lima knows that he can't let Martin Lawrence run away with it. 50 points is what separates it mathematically from just an outright victory. So he won't be wanting it to just get too far away from him. And actually, Chris Rubelar as well will be. He's not too far away in case anything happens. He will capitalize on this. The Audi's an odd one as well. We've seen this car and this driver sort of yo-yo between some really good finishes, and then we've been involved in a couple of accidents, and it's been a very up and down season, but doing amazingly well. P4 in that Audi, especially around here. The last time a team ran around here in an endurance race in the Audi, we talked to them after and said, "What is the Audi like?" And their response was, "The brakes are interesting after a session, and that the engine is a bit problematic on downshifts." And apparently, we have a replay from the back of the pack. Skipping back a little bit.
That George Russell hitting the curb on the inside, trying to overtake. That is very unfortunate. That was the 26 on the 404, making a move up the inside of a driver, but then hits the inside curb, and then just gets into an incident there and has to fall back down the field. And that is George Rosu, who was involved in that incident. So we're back to Chris Rubelar here, still keeping up with Thiago Lima, who's seemed to be kind of struggling to keep up with the Alpine of Hardwood, to be honest. But Martin Lawrence is he's just zoomed off in the distance. He's doing what Thiago Lima normally does, and makes a huge gap.
Yes, for the Audi of the 17 of Rubelar, you've got to remember as well that some of these cars they are so different now. And that also equates to different on the tires. Like, for example, the Audi takes quite a while to heat up its tires. The BMW is quite hard on them, so it will heat them up very fast. So there might actually be a tiny bit more pace in Rubelar's car once all the tires have heated up. So I'm not discounting that Audi as of yet. He's still managing to hang with that practice, I should say. He's had a few problems, hasn't he? And I think that that pace might have been slightly affected with the damage to the that right side of the car. The 007 of McLaughlin is keeping up with him really well.
Yeah, it's been interesting to watch so far. And Harseford, we expected him to be a little bit further up, but obviously with that damage, it's going to be difficult to get up the field. But yeah, it is GT4 cars after all. They can take a little bit more of a beating than GT3s, at least I think, in my opinion, and also my experience. I think you can run with a bit more damage. It doesn't mean that much, but McLaughlin right on the back of Harseford here looks like he's sort of slowly but surely just getting closer and closer. And I think a move is going to be made very soon.
Yeah, I think so. And normally with the aero damage as well, it starts slowing you down in a straight line. So any advantage that AMG did have in a straight line has sort of been eroded, and the AMR, I should say, or the Aston Martin, with the slipstream, he has the advantage now. And you see coming up to turn 2, he is pulling him in ever so slowly. I think these cars are pretty matched, and that's the 7. That's the 17. That's Chris Rubelar at the side of the road.
Yeah, so he's retired from the session now. I don't know why he would do that. It looked like he was just stopped on the side of the road. And all right, well, it looks like the internet gods have kicked in yet again, and he's been flying off into the distance. And that was a disconnection on via the internet. So that is very unfortunate for him, because I think he was in the chance of getting a podium spot today. And I think his performance has been great so far, and that sort of sums up his season a little bit. He does amazingly well, and then suddenly something happens and he has issues. But hopefully he'll be able to fight back in race 2.
Yeah, so Rubelar gone. The Audi has disconnected from the session. That will be sort of good news for Tiago Lima, who's now being promoted onto the podium position. Less points now of he's gaining those points slowly. Only needs maybe a handful more to mathematically win it. And now all he has to do is he doesn't have to worry about the Audi behind. He has a massive gap to the 69 of Boardman. And now he's just got to focus getting by that Alpine, which I really thought would be. I thought that the Porsche would really be more of a straight line speed car than the Alpine. But these two have been pacing themselves now for quite a few laps. And the gap sort of has stabilized, apart from the gap to Lawrence, who is gone now. He's 2 seconds up the road. That BMW just monstering it. And, well, we knew that Martin Lawrence had more to give over the mountain anyway. We saw him all the way up on his Delta in qualifying, but it just wasn't to be a mistake at the final corner. So he's now showing what he can do. But yeah, I really expected that the Porsche would have breezed by the Alpine by now.
Yeah, I think the Porsche is not the greatest in the straight line. I think it's we all often describe it as a brilliant all-arounder car. So it's great in the corners, it's great down the straight, but it's not amazing down the straight, and it's not amazing in the corners. Whereas the Alpine is amazing in corners and not so much down the straight. So I think Lima just trying to find an opportunity to overtake the Alpine. Maybe gains a little bit of time down the straight, but not enough to make an overtake. So I think he's going to have to try and force Hardwood into some sort of mistake somewhere. And speaking of forcing people to mistakes, Svenček here, right behind McLaughlin, who's right behind Harseford. This is going to be a nice little three-way battle here happening between the top 10 drivers here of the 107, the 7, and the 20.
Yeah, and well, you could see from the onboard, or maybe I should say how you can't see when you're that close to a driver. You're completely blind. Your headlights are just shining on the back of the car, and you're driving entirely off the memory of the circuit. And yeah, it is a difficult circuit to race at night. Is Bathurst? It's a difficult circuit to race in the day. So all of these doing, miraculously well. And Svenček here will have the best out of that down the straight line. He's got the double toe of the McLaughlin, the 7 in front, and then him behind. Oh, the McLaughlin, sorry, is being towed by Harsford. So down the straight, you'll see all these start to bunch up again. It does still appear that the AMG over the mountain just has that little edge over the Aston Martins. It can just about get away. But coming into a straight line, you can see now that they're very, very even. And I think that the Mercedes is only losing out in the straight line due to that right side aero damage that he picked up on lap 1.
Yeah, I was gonna say, even with that damage, the Mercedes doing a great job staying ahead of these Astons. So that's another thing about Panorama. You don't really have a chance to overtake apart from down the big straight. And if you can't catch up down the big straight, well, then you're gonna have to force your opponent into mistakes, and that is quite difficult to do, as most drivers don't really look in the mirrors because they know people can't really try anything through the mountains. So they'll be fully focused on what's ahead of them. But anything can happen, and we still have 8 minutes to go. And I think McLaughlin has shown before he has the pace, and so has Svenček. Svenček, I believe he won the feature race last time around in Brands Hatch, so he'll be wanting to collect even more points now to try and catch up to the top 3 in the championship. Although I do think it's quite a stretch for him to get there. I believe it was. But anyways, here we have McLaughlin slowly but surely gaining on Harseford, but not really able to do anything. And while this is happening, it seems like Alex Proma in the background is also catching up to these guys.
Yeah, the 404 on a bit of a charge once again back through the field after that earlier incident. But once again, even with the damage that car sustained, the GT4s are quite rough and ready. They take a lot more of a beating than, say, your GT3 car that has a bit of damage and is really affected by it. The GT4s can take quite a few dings and bruises and still put up quite a good race pace. They only are affected minorly. And while jumping back to the top 3, who have really scuttled away from P4 now, it is still Tiago Lima trying his best to catch up to this Alpine. You can see over the mountain that the Alpine just about manages to pull out a smaller, just a little bit of a gap. And down the straight with the slipstream, the Porsche will reel him in slowly. As well, it is quite a small slipstream, but that's just because the Alpine is so tiny. I mean, even we can see it on our broadcast cameras. the size of the Alpine versus the Porsche, and the Porsche is not a big car. It's not like you have a Camaro in your mirror or the BMW, which is sort of like a a towering super tanker. But the Porsche, in comparison to the Alpine, is quite large. So if I was Tiago Lima, I'd definitely want to be behind something like a BMW. If you were going to have the slipstream, you'd hide your entire car in it. The poor little Alpine only punching a minuscule hole.
Yeah, but even with that minuscule hole, I was paying close attention to the delta between Thiago Lima and Hardwood there, and it only looks like he gained 0.18 seconds down the straight, so not even 2/10 of an advantage down the straight, even in that little slipstream. And I think that that's going to make things very difficult for Lima to try and overtake Hardwood. Hardwood just needs to have a great mountain section and a good exit. I think he'll be fine. It looks like that is what he's doing as well, and Lima sort of just has to stay behind him and can't really do anything else, as he has to also think about the whole championship. Getting a P3 will obviously help him get closer to that championship win. Even though Martinos is going to get that P1, the gap is going to decrease a little bit between them, but it is a huge gap, and Lima still has 3 races to go after this one to win the whole championship. And I think Lima's definitely thinking about the long run here. He's not going to try anything that could potentially take him out of the contention for the championship.
Well, Hardwood's sort of his goal at the minute is he has to be incredibly smooth on that Alpine. You have to have no mistakes. We've seen like Olefe in qualifying what the Alpine can do if you give it. And we can see in the background the 107 touching the wall. I thought that was going to be. And we mentioned this driver earlier, the 404 Palmer. He did get around Svenček. He has caught right back up to this battle, has got back into the top 10, and is now chasing down the 7 of McLaughlin at an absolutely rapid rate of knots. This has meant that Harzevord has got a little bit of breathing space, and we're going to get a quick race replay of that. 404 into the last corner. You can see the speed overlap there. Brakes slightly later as well, and that's position gained for the 404 around the outside of the 107.
Yeah, it just looked like the 404 of Palmer got a great run through the chase, and Svenček had to let him pass there on the outside. It was a pretty good move, to be honest, and I think Palmer definitely showing great pace, getting closer to McLaughlin there on the braking. He's showing that he wants to fight for the top spot of this silver championship, even though Shelgren and Leff are a little bit too far ahead of him, as he has about 4 seconds to go. But Svenček trying something around the outside, late on the brakes there. Palmer has to stay on the inside, hits the curb a little bit. That's going to allow Svenček to get ahead of him yet again, but Palmer will have the inside line for turn 1, so I assume he's going to try and outbrake each other, and they go side by side through turn 1. A little bit wide goes Svenček. Palmer has to cut back in short. That's going to compromise his exit, but it is the BMW after all. You see him tucking into the slipstream, gaining and gaining, and Svenček on the inside, so he'll have an advantage going into turn 2. But if Palmer can make this move around the outside, this will be brilliant racing. Side by side, the 2 drivers. Late on the brake for Palmer, he does give Svenček all the space he needs, and I think Svenček has that move covered. And right behind him, you see Roberts trying to take advantage of this fight right here. Is he going to take it around the outside here? He's not going to do it. He's going to bonk the wall, and that's going to cost him a little bit of damage. They do survive, though. That is quite impressive from all the drivers here. We're going to see a replay.
Phil Roberts just running out of room on the right-hand side. The flash of the lights, obviously meaning that he was probably thought he should be given a little bit more space on the outside. He did have slight an overlap. Going for the opportunistic move there on the 404 after he'd been compromised, because turn 2, the outside is such an odd camber, and there are so many marbles out the outside. Trying to go around the outside of turn 2 most times will be worse for you. And the 107, and seeing what the 404 did to him, thought I can do that move back to you, and well, Svenček is now back up the road and gone, as Palmer has to slightly. Has that slight battle with the 225 of Roberts.
Yeah, this battling here with Svenček has actually cost him quite a lot, as he was clear of Roberts, but now Roberts is right in his clutches, and this could actually be costing him a few positions now. But Roberts will have a little bit of damage he collected with the low contact of the wall after trying to go side by side through turn 3, which is a flat out corner and only really has space for 1.5 cars. So good for them to all survive through it somehow. But Here we have Lev right on the back of Boardman. So in between two Camaros is the little Alpine, but he seems to be sitting quite comfortably there.
Yes, for now the little Alpine in a V8 sandwich, and what a car to be stuck behind though if you want slipstream. I mean, I mentioned it earlier, the size difference of even these guys. Look at that, you can't even see the track in front. That's exactly what you want, and this is basically the fight for the rest of the field, as it will. The top three have scuttled away all of almost 6 seconds now, coming through the last timing screen. So Alefe trying to show what that little Alpine can do. You can see that it has some of the cornering potential of this car. We've seen it over the mountain. If you can make it stick, it is such a car that you drive on a knife edge, and any sort of small falter in GT4s costs you a mile, as we've seen the 69 Camaro just managing to get away a little bit over the mountain with a slight slide from the Alpine. But now coming down the mountain, this is where all of the weight of the Camaro will put it at a disadvantage. You can see the Alpine catches right back up, being able to dart that nose sort of left and right, coming down the mountain and through Forest Elbow. You've got to get the run out, and then you have to tuck right back into that slipstream. And you can't really let off Canolefe, because Billy Octane is right behind him as well, who, if he knows that if that Alpine has any kind of falter, that Camaro will be there to gobble up that position.
And I, even though I think this is might be the last lap, looking at where Lawrence is on track and how many seconds we have left in the race, I think Lawrence rounding the final corner now. It might actually just have one more lap, maybe potentially. I'm not sure, as it looks like he is.
Nope, checkered flag.
I think he's forced it. I think the checker flag came out, but I think he's forced another lap. So I think
no, he has.
Martin Lawrence, with a second to go, decides to take another lap.
Well, if you're having so much fun, you may as well, which will be a blessing for some drivers, and some others, I'm sure, will be cursing under their breath. They've got one more to go, and with some of these battles up and down the field, this might just be the decider. But yeah, Martin Lawrence, miles ahead, 6 seconds ahead of Harwood, has really sort of come good in this race. We saw in qualifying that he did have that little bit more. It was just that he ran out of time. He had that incident at the final, sort of coming through the chase, I think it was, up to Murray's Corner. But now we're well, sorry for that brief little we had a brief little technical glitch there. I think we've plugged the microphone back in. Whoever stepped on the cable will need to, we'll have to tell them we need that cable. But yes, for the 33 for Billy Octane, what the extra lap has basically given him that one position. Now he's up to P5, so the top 5 overall. So he'll be absolutely applauding Martin Lawrence for that extra lap. And coming around the final corner of Murray's Corner, it will be Martin Lawrence too. This time, take the checkered flag, and he will win the sprint race for Bathurst.
And you see him dancing over the line there. I think he's going to be very happy with that result. And Martin Lawrence taking the first win he has of this season. We're going to see a race replay here of him crossing the line. And this is exactly what he needs to do to try and keep his championship hopes alive. Even though they're very slim, any hope is hope. And here we are, him sliding across the line. He should maybe sign up for a little bit of a drift league, because that was quite impressive, to be honest.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we lost comms just before we had the little race replay, but the Billy Octane as well. You saw the Alpine just have this tiniest twitch, and that was all that the the octane car needed, and what the 507 of the Alpine taking a bit of a crunch. Plus, I don't know why he wouldn't be happy with that position. P2 in an Alpine is nothing to shake a stick at. He's done incredibly well in that little car. But and the two Camaros, the 69 of Boardman and the 33 of Billy Octane, just rounding out 5 and 6 as your top 5 and 6. But yeah, Tygo Lima could not get around the 507 of Harwood. We thought that that might be quite an easy job to do, but obviously proving troublesome was that Alpine all race. And now we move on to the 40-minute feature race where strategies can entirely change. Obviously, the 20-minute was just a mad splash and dash as it was, minimal fuel, minimal problems to worry about like tires and heating them up. And every moment you have an opportunity, it is go time. Might see some of the drivers sort of adjust their styles and adjust the strategy. And well, 40 minutes now round the mountain.
Yeah, it was quite an interesting first race, and I think Hardwood is gonna know what he needs to do for next time around. But I think it's not gonna take long until Martin Lawrence takes that lead again in that BMW, and we might see quite a similar race to this one. Although this one was in the dark, so people were a bit more cautious. Next one will be with at least some sunlight, so you'll be able to see the track at least. And I think that's gonna spark some confidence in the drivers, and confidence in drivers means more overtakes, more daring moves, and just generally more carnage. So I can't wait to see what's in store for us.
And it'll be interesting to see what cars like maybe the 20 can do if they don't get that early lap one damage. And for the 404 as well, they had a spin and were brought back up quite high as well, even though they had that problem. And while we have a brief intermission as the drivers sort of get their cars back on the grids and get all their setups sorted out as well, just want to thank our partners here at RCI who make it so that we can continue bringing you this sort of great racing. And we've got racing almost every day of the week now, and they are Race Department, AK Informatica, Driver 61, and Sim Racing GP. And if you look in the all the links to those people are in the video description below. And if you look below as well in our Discord and this video description, there is a discount code for Driver 61 coaching. So if you want to just get that little bit of extra edge on your sim racing, get that a little bit faster, maybe if you're joining a league, that could be the place for you. And if you want to join any sort of racing leagues, join our Discord. All the schedules are there, splits for everyone, and quite a lot of exciting racing coming up. And I noticed earlier on, coming for our signups page, that we actually have a couple of new seasons for those who maybe don't play ACC. We have a dirt rallycross championship coming up, and we have R3E for your R3E fans. A bit of TCR action. So I'm sure that will be that'll be quite one to watch. Always hilarious racing of those TCR cars. You can really sort of go at it with each other. And yeah, other than that, we just want to thank you all for joining us on this. Now it's a quite nice sunny day at Bathurst. So like and comment, hit the subscribe button and the bell so you won't miss any of the racing we've got. And there's 1 minute 20 odd left on the grid, playing in the drivers' minds. Got to get the setups right. And for Tiger Lima, he's now thinking, can he get round this pesky Alpine at the early parts of the race? If he can do that, then I think that Tiger Lima can hold off the 507. They are so matched pace, are those. But this is a 40-minute race, so Hardwood's really got to keep all his P's and Q's in check with that car. If you have one small problem with it, it will bite you. And for the 171, he already knows what he has to do. He has to get around the Alpine early, and he has to drive away with it. And then everyone else in the rest of the field is a really mixed bag. I couldn't tell you anything for that. What can Hasford do without any damage, and what can the 404 of Palmer do in the silver class? Could he get Shelgren?
Yeah, I think it's going to be quite interesting to see. And also, these drivers, the cars, they have to adapt to the cars because they do change when the fuel is up. So I think they'll be running twice as much fuel in this race as they did the last race. And that can bring out some different characteristics and foibles in the cars. And I think the Alpine, especially on higher fuel loads, is even more unstable. So it'll be quite interesting to see how Hardwood will be able to drive with it, and I think he'll learn from last race. He will know that BMW will be able to take something up to the instead. I think also Thiago Lima, he's going to try maybe a few more daring moves, as he found out last race. He won't be able to overtake that Alpine on just pure straight line speed, and it doesn't look like Hardwood is going to make a mistake either. So I am interested to see how the start's going to pan out, but we could be saying all this stuff, and at the end of the day, it could be just 1, 2, 3, just like last race. All of them get through turn 1 easily, and then down the main straight, Lawrence gets his way past the Alpine into P1.
Well, you never know with GT4 sometimes, do you? And Bathurst just adds that a little bit of extra. And there we go. We do see that the 17. I was just about to mention that we had a sort of an absence on the grid, but the 17 has managed to reconnect. So he will be starting this race, albeit right from the back, rather than his, I think it was originally P4 slot that he did start from. So for the 17, it's now a little bit of a recovery drive to get back where he was. And for Alefi, one less car to worry about.
Yeah, that is for sure. But I think the 17 driving through the field, that's going to be quite interesting to follow as well. See how many positions he is able to keep up. And who's that in the background? That is Wig in the KTM, having a little bit of issues getting the car up to speed, and he's going to have to catch up to the pack pretty soon, or he's going to have to start from the pit lane. And as you see, he is putting all that he can through that little KTM there to try and catch up to the other guys. I don't know if he's going to do it in time. Looks like he is. But the rest of the field just bunching up around the top of the mountain now, just getting the tires warmed up as much as they can. And I think this is going to be another brilliant race. And this time, it's light. So the drivers will be able to see more, and hopefully we won't be seeing incidents like Harsteford on lap 1, just not really knowing exactly where the wall is, tapping the wall, and then gaining quite a lot of damage on that right side of the Mercedes.
Yes, well, the sun may be up, but the sun is also rising into the faces of the drivers over the mountain, which I'm sure will add just that little bit more complication. You can see it as it looks incredibly beautiful going down the dipper, the nice orange glow. But I'm sure that for some that glare will be just a little bit off-putting. But as he says, at least now you can see where you're driving. I always prefer driving Bathurst in the daytime. As he says, you can kind of then see the danger that you're going to crash into. And 30C now, so it's got just that little bit hotter. But I'm wondering if it might get just a little bit more hot once the sun starts to rise. Obviously, the sun in Australia is quite vicious.
Yeah, the no ozone layer in Australia, so it just the solar rays just shoot through the atmosphere. But here we are, and I think I've driven a few endurance races. I think I've done 1 or 2 12-hour Bathurst races. I can't exactly remember, but I remember the highest temps we got during the day was around 40 degrees. So as the day gets warmer, as the sun gets higher, it's just going to progress, and I think the drivers would take this into account. Even though it is 40 minutes, it could still increase by 1 or 2 degrees on the track. And at least it's optimum now, so it's not fast that we had the last race, but the track temp is a little bit high, and it looks like, as the cameraman of Mike Jones and on the drone has spotted, Luke Wigg is starting from the pit lane, as he did not manage to catch up to the rest of the field.
499 has been taken back to the pit lane, so they will start after the rest of the field has crossed them. Yeah, the 499 unable to get the car back up to speed and get going again. You see everyone now starting to line up 2 by 2 once again, coming up to Murray's corner, the last corner on this, and the last race here at Bathurst. So some people will be cheering that. Some people will be a little bit sad. It is definitely a track that divides drivers, I find. And once again, for Martin Lawrence, it's his race to lose. And for Hardwood in the 507, can he keep that little Alpine on the road, pointing the right way, in front of Tiger Lima, who is not an easy driver to defeat, for 40-odd minutes? As we're waiting for the green. And there we go, green light. And Tiger Lima gets a good start versus Martin Lawrence. The BMW keeps it up the inside. He's trying to force the BMW wide to get in front of it, and there's still an overlap there just about. And for Hardwood, the little Alpine just scuttling away like he needed to do. Martin Lawrence swaps to the outside, and we've seen this happen before. Will he try to go around all the way around the outside? It often doesn't work, but we'll see. Can the 171 make it deep into the braking zone? You can see him still side by side. And Tiger Lima, it looks like, just about sneaks it out. In fact, no, the 171 powers it round, then got the inside for the cutting and just keeps it in front. Incredible close racing.
That was a very brave move from Martin Lawrence right there, but he made it stick, and Thiago Lima had to make room for him to come through. And I think Martin Lawrence is showing what he
Ooh.
can do there.
Oh,
Around that's a little bit of contact there in the background, maybe a bit of an incident that we didn't quite catch. And there is the incident we were talking about. Is Svenchek, BMW 404. There's a huge pile-up happening in the background. Rubula caught up in that as well. I think that's Tom Bright. There's a little KTM coming through there, a little bit of a rejoin from the Aston Martin. That is a huge pile-up we see here at the start of the 40-minute race. Not what we expected, but I think we're going to have a restart because half the grid just got taken out right there.
yeah, red flag the session. We'll restart like that was I think what we class as a big one. That was the back half of the field. It looks like it was two cars trying to go too wide through. I think it's turn 6 and 7, which is I think it's Quarry Corner and Reed Park. I can't remember which way around those actually go. If Quarry Corner is 6 and Reed is 7, but going through there too wide, it narrows, and it just looked like one car tapped the wall, and then everyone else was a passenger really. And a lot of people, if the yellow flags aren't waved quick enough, you come around that blind corner and there's carnage everywhere. You've got nowhere to dive out of the way really.
Yeah, that was a classic Bathurst pileup right there. There's not really anywhere to go if the cars are spinning all over the track. You can't avoid them because it's either go through the middle and get taken out, or try and avoid them and hit the wall on the side and then be spinning across the track yourself. So very unfortunate indeed. But we have gotten a race restart. All the mechanics of the teams doing an excellent job of getting those cars repaired in the time that they needed, and all the cars happily and fresh, ready to race yet again. And maybe we'll see a different start this time. I think Martin Lawrence will maybe he will know what to do this time around in turn 1, and Thiago Lima maybe it won't give him as much space if we're going to see the same result into turn 2.
Yeah, well, Tiger Lima showing that he can put that Porsche where it needs to be, and the BMW sort of being bullied out wide. And you could see that even though the monumental straight line speed of the BMW, he couldn't get the overlap. All this is great news though for the little Alpine, because while they were busy doing this, Harwood was just sort of scuttling away with it, which is everything that he needs, because he knows that eventually the 171 will catch on a straight line. He'll let him by, and he will keep quite a good gap to Tiger Lima. But like I said, now each driver knows each of their tricks. Will we see a repeat of this, of the Porsche going up the inside? The Porsche on the launch appears to have a great launch versus the BMW, and I'm wondering if that's a bit of a gearing difference. Having driven the BMW for a few endurance races in a GT4, the one thing that I take away, well, in fact, the two things that I take away from that car: the gearbox. I don't know who designed those ratios. I can only assume that they were a greengrocer. They were clearly someone who does not know what gears should be. First gear is impossible. Well, first gear is just for setting off. Second gear is quite short, and and third is just third is generally keep it in. And then all the other. I mean, that car has 8 gears in a straight line. I found this out at Paul Ricard, and you only use maybe 6.
Yeah.
And the Porsche is much sort of conventional gearing, so it appears to be much better on the launch. And the other thing that really annoyed me on the BMW were the brakes. They just don't seem to work after, I don't know, about 4 hours into an endurance race. They give up.
Yeah, obviously these GT4 cars running on road car brakes are not they're not changed from the road cars counterparts. They are still running the same spec brakes, whereas GT3s they have a fully carbon ceramic. I don't know what they call them nowadays, but they have
I
a
think there's still steel on
steel for
GT3. Yeah,
GT3s. Okay.
I think GT3s are still steel. It was the back in the days of sort of GT1s and cars like that, I think a few of those had carbon ceramics when we're going about like the 575 Maranellos. the big Le Mans monsters. I think modern day GT3s run steels, but they are huge. I mean, these are like dinner plates that you could you could use. They are ginormous. I remember looking at real life and some of the real life cars at British GT, and I mean, we're talking like 6 to 8 piston calipers on the front. The stopping power of them must be immense. And yeah, a lot of the GT4s, they're still steel, but they are tiny little. They're more of the road brake counterpart. The sort of the things that you would put track pads on, track discs, and basically that's it. They keep all their standard. And some of the cars are really strict on what you can and can't do with it. Like for example, the McLaren, you can't change the brake bias at all. The brake bias is what the brake bias is. Same with the brake ducts. If your brakes are overheating, well, that is a you problem, and you're going to have to deal with that. And some cars sort of have a bit of a better braking system. But this is kind of why I like GT4, because they are so different. Every car, none of these cars handle, drive, or do anything similar to each other. Even cars like the AMG versus the Aston Martin, they are the same car underneath. They're a shared platform. They share the engines, the drive lines, everything. But the AMG is really oversteery, and the Aston Martin is kind of like its GT3 counterpart, but made a little bit smaller. It's very safe, very stable, but just a little bit slow out of the corners.
Yeah, that's the great thing about GT4 cars. Also, how close they are to the real life counterparts. I think for me, a GT4 is just a glorified road car with a roll cage in it, and I think that just it just makes for really exciting racing in general. And I think these cars, I think they are more exciting to drive than GT3s, even though GT3s are considered to be the top class in ACC, just due to the sheer speed of those things. I think GT4 is still, from a driver's perspective, I prefer GT4s unless you take the Porsche Cup into the equation. Then I think the Porsche Cup is for sure my favorite car to drive. But these GT4s definitely a fan favorite among some. That's to say the least.
If there was any GT4 car that I would say is a driver's car and what would be my favorite, but it's one of those where it's my favorite car, but I wouldn't necessarily run it for a whole season, would be the Ginetta. I I really like that Ginetta. Maybe I'm a bit biased because I used to live literally down the road from the factory. I used to watch that team go to all the races and take their crazy bonkers Ginetta GT3 out for events. And that car, you drive it angry. You tell it where to go, you throw it around, and you really wring everything that you've got out of that little V6, like right to the red line. But the problem is that it runs out of puff very early on. It's like 240 kilometers an hour, I think, and you hit the red line, which means at a track like this, at Bathurst, you're out of it before you go. And speaking of people who've got the straight line and are maybe out of it before we even go, we go 2x2 again, and we're waiting for the green flag for tick 2 of the 40-minute feature race here at Bathurst. And well, this time it's the BMW that gets an almighty launch. Tiago Lima being left, and can the BMW go all the way around the outside of Harwood? Not to be, is on the grass a little bit squirrely. And Tiago Lima now looks to the inside. Will we see a repeat of race 1 where Martin Lawrence was forced around the outside? It looks like not. The BMW using that almighty straight line speed and clears him before you even get to turn 2. And now for Harwood, that is kind of the worst situation. He knows that he's going to be passed by the 171 in a straight line, but he doesn't have this gigantic buffer to Tiago Lima that he did in race 1.
Yeah, that was a great start from Martin Lawrence. Last start around, he was starting a bit further back in the grid, but here he just managed to try and send it around the outside, gets a poor exit, but that doesn't matter because he has a straight line speed. Tiago Lima maybe looked like he was going to try something up the inside as he got a better exit, but obviously that BMW just ran away from him and he has to stop back into P3 and stay there for now. I think we're going to see Martin Lawrence down the main straight do another move like he did in race 1, but here we are riding on board with them, and it looks like Hardwood has actually managed to create a little bit of a gap, so it might be safe for lap 1 at least, but all it takes is a little mistake and then that BMW will capitalize and get ahead. But Tiago Lima sort of pushing Martin Lawrence through the corners, going into Forest Elba now. see if they manage to get the car slowed down. It looks like all of them get a good exit as well. So Martin is going to shoot off into the distance. And here you see the difference between, well, the Porsche and the BMW. I'd love to see what the difference is between the Alpine, but it looks like the Alpine just too far ahead now, 1.2 seconds. Martin Lawrence is not going to be able to catch up in time, but he will be able to gain some ground on Harwood at least. But that was quite a clean first lap, to be honest.
Yeah, very clean. The only yellow we had was the 499 of Wig, who's appears to be right at the back. And this is the 308 of Olefe, diving down the inside of the 69 of Boardman, and position gained now up into the 4th place. That the other, once again, the Alpine's looking very, very strong this this race. And Olefe showing what he can do. We've seen that he had a few sort of moments in race 1 as well, and in qualifying maybe didn't go exactly the way he wanted it, but P4 nonetheless. And what can this man do? Harsvord, we've seen he got the damage in race 1, and now in race 2 it's all to play for. You can see him catching up to the back of Shelgren, the 294. That will not be for a position in his class, but that is the 69 of Boardman, the big red Camaro right up ahead. So he'll want to get past Shelgren sort of as quick as he can. Too wide into the second corner as well. We've seen this sometimes doesn't work, and once again Shelgren gets the better drive, and up to the corner they go towards the cutting.
Yeah, it's super difficult to make a move around the outside. If you mentioned earlier, there's marbles and everything on the outside and off camber as well. So Shelgren doing all he needs to do there to maintain position. Looks like Billy Octane has Svenchek behind. We're gonna see a race replay here. Is that Billy Octane and Svenchek battling through the cuts, and looks like Octane up the inside is able to make it stick. A little bit of a tap there on Svenchek, but it's okay. It is GT4 racing after all. We do allow a little bit of bumping as long as it's not detrimental to the other driver's race. And Billy Octane makes a position there. That's a good move, and I think there's quite a big train behind Leffe now, as the top 3 have just zoomed off into the distance.
Yeah, Billy Octane managing to find the only Camaro-sized gap on the mountain. I mean, I think there was a bit of a squeeze there going on, a bit of a a bit of a tight moment. But yeah, Billy Octane making positions up, and Olefe now is the head of the train, trying to run away. We've seen last race, like I said, maybe wasn't his time, but if you can hold on to it, you can see that the Alpine just gets that away a little bit through each of the corners. And looking in the background, that is Harsford and Shelgren. They're still too wide through the chase. Harsford wants that position, and you can see actually position gained for Harsford. That is the front of the AMG in front of Shelgren. So now Boardman really has to keep his eyes on his mirrors, because it looks like Harsford is making his way up, and followed by Palmer in the 404.
Yeah, it was a very brave move around the outside, and I think we see is that the 26 of George Rosso trying up the inside of turn 1. A little bit of contact that's going to send McLaughlin off the road there, and I think that's not exactly the cleanest overtake we've seen so far, but that's going to allow Proma to try and make a move around the outside of Rosu, and I think here we're going to see it again as Rosu on the inside into turn 1. There's a little bit of space given, but not enough, and the 2 cars just come together. There's a bit of a forceful overtake, but here we go. Rosu up to P9 overall and P3 in class, but we'll have to see if the stewards have anything to say about that. But he's right up behind McLaughlin, as we'll have to see Martin Lawrence. Here he is, closing in on Hardwood. So Hardwood, with his advantage through the mountain, seems to be sort of disappearing a little bit, and it doesn't take much as Thiago Lima hits the wall in the background there. That's going to cost him some time. That's going to take some damage on the car, and he's going to be struggling a little bit more now with that damage.
Yeah, it's not exactly what you want to be doing. Sort of knocks like that can add up quite quickly. You have one small knock, it affects the aero, you understeer a little bit more, and there's a big snowball effect going on. But yeah, Harwood just managing to hang on to his lead. I'm wondering if the BMW in a full race fuel is sort of struggling with that 40 minutes, and Olefe is now really the cork in the bottle. You can see now he's got Boardman and Harsford, within a second behind him. The little Alpine trying its best. He knows he has to hang on somehow down the straight. You have to defend it, and coming into the chase, the Halseford's looking for the gap, the one Mercedes gap, and look at the speed of the AMG. Is he going to go around the outside of the Alpine? It is too wide coming into the chase, and Halseford is off. He's off the road.
Oh no!
Oh!
Oh, there's a huge incident there. Harseford getting onto the grass, not able to get the car slowed down in time. Olaf left coming around the corner, and that is so sad. I think he a little bit too much understeer here, and that is indeed the case. And you see he's trying to slow the car down, trying to get on the brakes. It's not enough, and he comes across the track, and Olaf left very unlucky to be collected there by Harseford, and you saw it coming from a mile away. I was hoping it wouldn't happen, but sadly that is going to bring the end of Olaf Left's race right here and there, and that is a huge incident happening right there. Harseford almost makes it 2-1, but ends up taking himself and Olaf Left out.
Yeah, well, you could see the speed of the AMG basically on the red line all the way, but I mean, we could see it coming from a mile away. But for both of those drivers, basically, the little Alpine disappeared from Hasford's view, and the Mercedes, I don't even think the Alpine would have ever seen him until he was inside of his windscreen. And once you've gone off the track, there looks like there's plenty of runoff, but you can't really slow the car down, not without. It's so hard to sort of get it turned without rejoining. So a sad end for sort of both of their races. Obviously, Harsford continuing on, but what damage has been done, and he's way down the order now. The people who are not way down the order and continuing to make their sort of charge up, Billy Octane, the 33, is caught back up to the 26 of Rosu. And we've seen him, he was in top 5 in the race 1. We'll see if we can do it again in that 33.
Yeah, Billy Octane's sort of been not a qualifier, but a racer in that Camaro. I think he always manages to gain quite a few positions when it comes to the race time. It was a bit unlucky last race where it was a bit of an issue, but this race we saw the brilliant move up the inside into turn 4, I believe it was, on Svenchek, I think it was, yeah. And here we have Martin Lawrence closing in on Harwood, not able to close in enough, but he's right up behind him now. He might be able to have a look up the inside or go around the outside into the last corner. Here Harwood defending the inside, outbreaks Martin Lawrence, so he's going to stay ahead just for now. But Martin Lawrence just pushing that Alpine through the corners, and I think it's a matter of time before he gets that P1 position.
I think it could be either this lap or the next one. I mean, look at how close that BMW is. And I thought maybe that the BMW had to run a lot more. And the Alpine, with the bad run out of turn 1, we could see the gravel kicked up, and I think this is going to be it. The 507 will relinquish his race lead, but he's done well to hold. He has held it 4 laps versus that mighty BMW we thought was going to be a lap 1, one and done. But the 507 now dropping back into P2 as he was, and if he can keep it there for the half an hour, we've seen that he can hold off the 101 of Tiago Lima, but he's got to keep it all doing. And actually, that's the 171 of Martin Lawrence going slightly wide. The 507 looks to the outside, but over the mountain, there is really no way you can go. You can see it immediately tightens up. You can look to the outside, but there's just not a car width there. It falls back in line. But for Lima, this is also playing into his hands. As these two have been fighting, you can see he's caught back up.
Yeah, there's a great battling going on here, and I think Harwood finding out why it's so difficult to make an overtake on this mountain is he just sort of ran out of space as a wall was closing in on him, and he had to lift to give Lawrence a space, otherwise it would have been a big collision there. But anyways, Harwood, I think he's got the racing spirit, and he has shown to have a little bit more pace this race around. So Lawrence is going to zoom past or zoom away on the straight, but in the corners, it looks like Harwood might be able to catch up. And here we have another BMW catching up on the Porsche of Shellgreen. So that is Rosu fighting with Shellgreen for that P1 position in silver class, right up the bumper, pulling out to the outside now. Is he going to be able to get the run he needs? Shellgreen does have the inside for the little corner we saw last time happen with Harseford when he was on the outside. Hopefully we won't see a repeat of that anymore, but here we go. Rosu around the outside, has the inside for the next corner, late on the brakes, cuts in front of Shellgreen. Does he manage to get the car stopped in time? A little bit sideways though, but he does get the car into the corner and he gets that P1 position. So that's a brilliant overtake by Rosu there, and Shellgreen just has to slap in behind him here. We get a race replay here.
Yeah, you can see that car sort of all over, twitching right and left. The brakes and the BM, it is a big old car to stop as well, especially with the speed that you can carry down the straight. So position gain for Rosu up to P5 overall and P1 in the silver class. So that will really help him in his championship battles. And for this man, Chris Rubelar, disconnected in the at race one, has reconnected now and slowly making his way back up the field. He's in P10 overall, so top 10. You know, not bad considering started basically from the pit lane and has now set his sights firmly on Svenček. Looking to the inside, but is just a fake dive, nothing yet, and fall back in line for the mountain section.
Yeah, that is quite some great racing going on right there. We see Harsefoot sort of struggling a little bit, and we just heard in the ears of a little bit of a note slipped on the door as well that the broadcaster Mike Jones says Martin is gone. So throw some crabs in chat if you're still watching, and he is just going to take this race into his own hands, do a Thiago Lima style victory. I think I don't see anything stopping him at all.
No, it doesn't look like it. What I'm sort of interested to see is can Thiago Lima get around that pesky little Alpine? Now that it's got a longer race, tyre wear might start playing into it a slight. You know, the tyres on these normally will last quite long, but this is Bathurst, and if you are a bit more of a spirited driver, as it were, you can cause some severe wear. And that is a little bit of a more scratched up looking Triple R number 33 car. Nice and the usual Bathurst scrapes there. You're nice and pristine on the left and some battle scars on the right. It'll be fine, lads. When you take the press photos, just take pictures of the left side of the car. They'll never know. Oh, and that's Shellgren off. That is Shellgren off in the chase. Will this be a moment for Billy Octane? You can see the Camaro closing in, switches to the inside, and yeah, it's almost. I said no contest. The Porsche looking like he put it up.
Just gets too late on the brakes and has to go onto the grass as an escape mechanism. Rejoins the track, I think, the best he can. I think that is the best damage limitation Shellgren could have done there. But unfortunately, it allows Billy Octane to overtake him and get up to P6. Although, even though they aren't fighting in class, this puts him right into the clutches of Alex Proma, who is someone he is fighting in class. So that BMW on the back of the Porsche, we have seen this battle before in silver class, and it didn't end up well for the Porsche. So Shellgren is going to have to do quite a lot of work now to try and stay ahead.
Now, Proma will be quite sort of keen to put. And it was caught up in an incident in race one, so he'll be quite keen to put that behind him and, you know, get up, which would essentially be, I believe that is P4 in silver class. And we've seen the almighty straight line speed of that BMW. If you can keep with Shellgren over the mountain, it's almost no contest in a straight line with this BMW. And speaking of some of the two fastest cars down the straight line, this is Phil Roberts in his BMW, the 225. Trying to stick with Harsvord, who obviously is now carrying around once again that damage. So what will happen to the straight line speed? We saw when the car didn't have the damage, the almighty speed of the AMG. It was just like everything else was standing still, blasting by both the Alpine and the Porsche, and just didn't manage to get it stopped in time for that. So I think that will do. And will this be the moment? Thiago Lima on Harwood. Is this finally the moment where Thiago Lima manages to get around that pesky little Alpine? Looks to the inside on the chase, but it's not to be. And there you go. Once again, the Alpine just managing to carry a little bit more corner speed and ekes out that gap again. But I think that it's going to be a couple of laps, and Thiago Lima is going to really start to look at getting by the Alpine. He must be bored of looking at the back of that very orange and blue Alpine by now.
Yeah, he's basically been looking at the back of it for nearly 40 minutes now. And I think he'll be wanting some change of scenery, that's for sure. He'll probably prefer the back of the bright red BMW a little bit further up in the distance. But Martin Lawrence just shooting away off in the distance. It seems like no one is able to touch him today. Thiago Lima was getting closer in the back of the... at the back straight, but wasn't able to make it stick, and he has to do it all over again. But I think a move is imminent here, and I do think that Harwood is going to struggle a little bit longer as Proma on the back of Shelgreen, trying to dart left and right, trying to find a space to go around Shelgreen. It decides to go for the outside into turn 2. We've seen that not work out for anyone before, apart from Matadoras in the second race where we restart. But you see right side, Shelgreen covers up the inside. Proma's going to go to the left side, which is the outside, and he's just not able to make it stick and has to slot in behind Shelgreen yet again.
Yeah, it looked for it looked like it was a attempt at a cutback maneuver. It was just tried, but you can't get the power down when you're that far out onto Griffin's Bend and smashing the curb there as well. Quite brave. There's now some of these drivers that the sun's coming up. You can actually see where you're going and what you're doing. And I think any track liberties now are being taken in the pursuit of a position. And I don't think though that it's going to be long before Palmer really starts to put the pressure on Shelgren. If he can keep with him through any amount of the mountain section and get the run out onto Forest Elbow, which he does appear to have closed up, it is then once again the mighty speed of the BMW all to play.
Yeah, and here we have Proma chasing down Shelgren, as he said, the mighty speed of the BMW coming into play here. And I think maybe he might try a move up the inside into the chase, looking like he's gaining quite a lot of time on Shelgren. Shelgren sort of looks like he was defending the inside, but isn't going for it, as he's just a bit too far ahead of Proma to consider. Well, Proma's a bit too far behind Shelgren to consider a move. But maybe a little bit into the final corner. It still looks like he's just staying back there patiently, waiting for that BMW straight line to take him past Shelgren on the straight eventually before the race is over.
Well, it looks like what the 404 is waiting for is the time he gets a really, really good run out of a corner. If you can get a monumental run even over the Porsche, you would clear the driver by the time you even got to the next corner. And, you know, that is sort of the easiest overtake. And looking in the background as well, while these two are fighting, Chris Rubelar, the driver who disconnected, he's making his way back up slowly. And too wide once again, second corner. That is Rosu actually gaining the position on the 69 of Boardman. So the 69 falls out of P4, and Rosu now leading silver class, quite a way up from his fellow silver drivers, showing great pace today.
Yeah, he had that incident with Proma in race 1 and a little bit of incident again here in race 2, but he has shown that he's got the pace to fight for the top of the silver class lead here, and looks like he is doing a little bit of a Thiago Lima of sorts. It's just sort of running away from the rest of the field. Shelgren's really struggling. Proma behind him, but here we go. Phil Roberts, Harzeford, and Svenchek. The three of these drivers, all in front engine cars, but all of them very different as well. And I think Roberts not fighting for the class here, but Svenchek and Harzeford, they're going to be fighting tooth and nail, because that is a positioning class, and that is extra points, as we have said time and time again. Any point counts when it comes to the end of the season.
And Harzeford will be trying to gain any of the points that he can. And Phil Roberts touching the wall, coming out onto Forest Elbow. That will compromise your run just that little bit more, as you can see up ahead. The AMG and the Aston Martin just not giving up on either of them. And I don't think that AMG is going to have that biblical speed. But there we go. AMG moves to the inside. And it looks like it will be... Will it be position gained on the 107? No, it will not be. Svenchek, late brakes versus the 20 of Harzeford, just keeps the position. And now Harzeford's got to do it all over again.
Yeah, so another thing with the extra speed, you have to brake early as well, as braking distance will increase if you are running, let's say, 5 to 10 kilometers an hour faster than the guy next to you. So it seems like Svenchek managed to time that perfectly on the braking and stay ahead for now. But he is still getting pressured quite a lot by Harzeford, and Harzeford seems to be unlocking the pace he showed a little bit in the practice session. He's really challenging, and someone else who's challenging is Thiago Lima, trying to go around the outside of Hardwood, has to slot in back behind in turn 2, and Hardwood seems to be staying ahead just for now. But Thiago Lima, even though he was in the same situation last race and didn't manage to make a move, it looks like he has a bit more pace this time around and is pushing Hardwood just that little bit extra further into maybe a potential mistake happening for that Alpine driver.
And the Alpine driver's got to concentrate just that so much more. Bathurst is already not an easy track, no matter what time of day, night, or whether you give it. And the Alpine is not an easy car to drive at the best of times. You got to really be all on your senses to keep this car at this pace, pointed in the right direction as well. While you know that you've got basically the championship leader and the person who has been the fastest throughout this entire season. It looks like he was running away with it constantly, and you know that that driver is behind you, but you've got to just not focus on that, run your own race, and continue on. And well, that 101 of Lima just closing up that little bit each time they come down the straights, the gap just slowly decreasing. But it's, can he get in front of the Alpine before the mountain straight?
Yeah, that is the question. Doesn't look like he's able to do it this time around, as I think the Porsche straight line is not as strong as most of the field, to be honest. It looks like he's struggling to catch up to the Alpine, whereas the BMWs, the McLarens, and the Audis, also Mercedes, they would just fly past the Alpine. But it does look like he is struggling in the straight line. But that also means in the corners, the Porsche is able to stick with Harwood, yeah. And I think it's a matter of who makes the first mistake to see how this fight is going to play out, because I don't see any moves happening without any mistakes happening at this point.
Not at the moment. It's looking just both of them are very consistent. And we're getting another quick race replay. This is Phil Roberts, who's caught up to Hardwood and Svenchek, or Harsford and Svenchek, and has gone around the outside of both of them coming through the chase. So that he's now up to P10 is the 225, making great moves through the field. And now he's got to leave them, must go, using obviously the straight line speed. And that might actually be the moment that Halseford pounces. You can see in the background the 107 and the 20 side by side, but the 20 is on the outside. We've rarely seen this move come off, basically only once today, and once again, it is not to be. The 20 has to slot back in line. And for Harsford, he'll be fuming, I'm sure, to get around Benchek.
Yeah, Phil Roberts doing the move that Harseford was trying to do earlier when he ran onto the grass and took out Olaf Leff in the same move. But that it just shows the straight line speed difference, and with the BMW, and you can do that sort of thing during the race. It might not be the best in the qualifying because it is quite not the best car, or at least a little bit unstable over the mountain. But on the straights during the race, it's just so much faster, and that makes it a really good race pace car. So here we have McLaughlin on the back of Dober. Even though these guys are not fighting for class, McLaughlin has been catching up to Dober, and it looks like he will try and make a move anytime soon.
Yeah, and the 7 of McLaughlin maybe not had his best race. We saw him caught up in some of the earlier incidents, especially at Hell Corner. He was taken off the road, so he's on a bit of a recovery drive. But nice to see that they're still running around. You don't need to. Oh, and that is the 777 of Dorber hard into the wall. You can see the car launching up on two wheels. And that will be the moment for the 7 to breeze by easily. I was going to say how they are matched machines, and that sometimes makes the racing a little bit more fun if you're in someone with the same car as you. But that will be it. The 7 will pass by with that damage taken and the bad run from the 777 up to 16 now. And there we go, back Tiger Lima. Will he do it? Has he finally got it? But it's the outside. It is the outside of turn 2, or also known as Griffin's Bend. Can he do it? Nope. It is a long way around, and the Alpine holds it. The amount of drivers that we've seen try to go around the outside of Griffin's Bend is just not working out for them.
Yeah, I mean, they don't really have any other choice either, as the driver they are attacking just goes to the inside. They can't really go anywhere but the outside, and they're going to have to attempt some sort of move, and generally speaking, it ends up being just having to slot back in behind them and trying again a few laps later or down the main straight. So Thiago Lima doing everything he can here, putting Harwood under a bit more pressure this race, I'd say, compared to last race. So still with 14 minutes to go, anything can still happen. But this is the 3rd or 4th time I think we've seen him try to go around the outside, and every time it hasn't worked. And speaking of mistakes, Thiago Lima into the wall, catching a huge slide down there, scraping a little bit longer. We're going to see a race replay of this. I think it just gets a little bit sideways down the hill. See if it's under braking, and oh, it just looks like it turns in turns in a bit too early on the wall. Amazing catch, to be honest. So that could have been a lot worse than what it was, but that's going to give him some extra damage. And I think Harwood can now breathe, as I think Thiago Lima is going to stay in that P3 position now, considering the damage he has received.
I thought that was definitely a spin. That when that car, the rear end of it, caught the small bit of grass that's on that track, I thought that Porsche was definitely going to be facing the wrong way. But yeah, for Harwood in the 507, who's been under so much pressure for over half of the race, as that Porsche actually started to catch up and attack, that is an absolute sigh of relief. That he now just knows that he has to lap consistently and he will keep it. And speaking of people who've managed to just lap consistent, someone that we haven't really talked much about, but the 69 of Andy Boardman, who's running P4 in pro class and P5 overall, as that's Rossu just in front, who is the silver class leader. He's just had he's had 2 races where we haven't really had to talk about him. He's been very clean, very consistent, and just kept to his own. And well, look what's happened again. P5, P6, the 2 Camaros have found themselves on track again.
Yeah, and here we see Palmer trying yet again on Shelgin. He is going to have the outside though. Depending on the run he's going to get, now it looks like he's going to have to go around the outside yet again. Shelgin covering the inside is able to make a stick. Palmer has to stop back in behind. Rubelow now into this fight as well. That's going to throw a little bit of a curveball into this mix, and I think Shelgin is going to be kind of smiling seeing Rubelow back there because he's going to be applying pressure now on Palmer.
Yeah, the middle driver is always sometimes the worst driver to be. If you go for a move and it doesn't stick, you're opening the door to the driver behind, but then you can't start defending from the person behind because you will just lose time to sort of your goal in front of the driver in front. It is the worst, and you especially don't want to be doing things like that. Alex Palmer, as Mike Jones eloquently putting it, bonking the wall. I think that's the technical term. I'll have to write that down in my book of technical. Is a crash at Bathurst is called a bonk.
I do believe that is the technical term for a crash anywhere in the world, not just at Bathurst. But Mike Jones loves to use the word bonk, and it's great to point out every time it happens on track. And us commentators, we know exactly what's going on when he does scream those infamous words of bonk into our ears, and we can't hear for the next 3 seconds. But anyways, here we have Rubelow trying to make a move on Palmer. Isn't going to be able to catch up, it seems though, as Palmer has slightly lost out to Shelgren this time around. Rubelow not fighting for a class position, but he is kind of gaining now, to be honest, and that Audi pretty fast in a straight line, I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, it's a bit of the unstoppable force, the immovable object, both of these cars that have got the sort of the better straight line speed in this field. That has to be the 17 with the advantage of having the slipstream of that massive BMW. You can see closing up all the way on the brakes. But yeah, Chris Rubelow on a bit of a recovery drive, obviously with that early disconnect, started right at the back of the field and is all the way up to P9. Possibly could be a P8 soon. Going around the outside of Hell Corner is the 17. And if the Audi can get the traction down and get the run, he can. He has cleared the 404, but now can he hold it? Because that BMW will be, you can see it start to close in now when the speed starts picking up. He's got to defend the inside. And in fact, no, he might not. No, he does not. The 404 does not look for it. Maybe that might be a bit of a strategy. If the 404 can keep with the 17 and Shelgren is forced open by the 17, it might then be the time for the 404 to pounce.
Yeah, we've seen this before as well with some of the silver drivers using the pro drivers to sort of push the guy ahead of them out into a position on track where they don't want to be, and then they take the they drive with the guy ahead of them and trying to do a double overtake of sorts. And I think that is what Proma is trying to do here, as he sort of has to do some driving style adjustments with that damage. It seems like he's not really got the same pace as he had before with Boardman here. Catching up to Rolls in front of him, even though this is not for class. Both of these drivers have been having a great race today, and I think...
Yeah, and as well, speaking of people who've had one hell of a great race, what can you say for Martin Lawrence, the 171? And we'll have a quick onboard lap showing around the sights and the sights and the sounds and everything of Bathurst, and he's led this not quite from lights to flag. It's been 4 laps to take him to get around that one pesky Alpine of Harwood. The Alpine really not wanting to give up that position at all. But otherwise, race 1, he did the exact same thing, got round in a straight line and really drove his race away. And race 2, he's done the exact same. I mean, the gap now is nearly 7 seconds from the last timing board. It's just a monumental pace difference.
Yeah, he's been in his own league today, and we just look at his own board. He looks so calm and collected in that BMW there. He's won his first race in this series in race 1, and he's about to win the second race here. And we see, looking at the focus through the visor there, we can see the slight adjustments on the steering wheel. It's not even panicked or anything. It just looks like he knows exactly where to place that car, and he is doing the best job he can, and just showing what of an amazing driver he is, leading this whole race after overtaking. And we see the drone camera having a little bit of fun inside the control. He's getting ever so close to the wall as well, but that's what he needs to do to extract lap time on this track, and he's been doing it consistently, lap after lap after lap, without making any mistakes. And I think that shows what a brilliant driver Martin Lawrence is in this BMW around here at Bathurst.
And 14 laps, that's 14 times that you could have potentially hit the wall, and manages us every single time to keep it out that. And yeah, it just looks like you're going for a Sunday drive, like you knew exactly where this track went off the back of his hand. But all these drivers sort of, you expect that with the pro drivers. That's how we classify, if people are a bit unsure, that's how we classify difference between pro and silver in RCI. It's not necessarily your pace, because we've seen plenty of races that have been won by a silver class driver, and silver class drivers can very easily fight the pros if they wish, but it's about your consistency. So if you can do that qualifying pace and put yourself on pole position, that's fine. But silver drivers, we expect to not be as consistent in the race, and people like Martin Lawrence are in the pro category because they can do these laps just lap after lap after lap, and with I would say maybe 3 laps to go, it's pretty much now it's in the bag for Martin Lawrence. He just has to drive it calm and collected and take the checkered flag once again.
Yeah, but I think I've been doing some calculations, and if it does stand this way, I don't think it will be enough for him to fight back the championship, to keep his championship hopes alive. I do believe if it stays as is, Thiago Lima will win the championship. So even though Martin Lawrence has been producing an excellent job today, it might have been a little bit too late for him to try and win the overall championship. But we'll have to see what the standings is at the end of the races. Thiago Lima, we saw, had a big off with a lot of damage, and it could very well be that he will have another off, even though Thiago Lima is one of those consistent drivers that you were just talking about.
Yeah, the early points really playing out for Tiago Lima, and Chris Rubelar up the inside of Shelgren there, not really fighting it. Is the 294 of Shelgren, knows that he's not in his class, and Chris Rubelar is now back on the charge, and you could just about see up in the edge of the camera there, that was the 33 of Billy Octane just disappearing around the corner. But I think that it might just be a little bit too little too late. He's done a fantastic recovery drive to get all the way back through the field, and has really shown the pace of that Audi that he didn't necessarily get to show in race 1, having that disconnect. But it's just a shame, I think, that the time is not on Chris Rubelar's side today.
Yeah, it's very unfortunate. I will disagree though. He did show he had great pace in race 1 until the disconnect. He was keeping up with the leaders throughout the whole stint until his car fell through the floor with a failure of some sort from the internet. And yeah, it's been a pleasure to watch him fight back through the field, to be honest. And it just goes to show how talented Rubelar is, and if he can keep this momentum up, maybe in another series he will be able to fight for the championship lead.
Yeah, let's say the Mercedes. The Audi's always one of those sort of strange cars. It comes and it goes. It has its happy days, and when it has its off days, it really is not on it. But every single time we've seen just run out of time a little bit, maybe for the finishes that he should deserve. The 17, like I say, you can't really fault the recovery drive today. Has got all the way back up into the top 10, in fact, the top 7. And there's Billy Octane in front of him in the 33. But with 3 minutes 50, that's maybe 2 and a bit laps, and the 33 having a bit of a drift session on the outside of the dirt there at Hell Corner. Got to keep it consistent. Got to keep it on the road. Even 3 minutes left, and then you can park it up. And for some of these drivers, I know they will be quite happy to get out of the car and put Bathurst behind them.
Yeah, that's for sure. I think Bathurst is definitely one of those tracks. If it bites really hard, and you can just put a damper on your day. But it is racing at the end of the day, and we're all here because we love it. And no matter how hard it kicks you, you're always gonna come back the next day smiling with a huge smile on your face because you are driving these insane GT4 cars around the track. And I believe the last race is at let me just complete. Is it at Kyalami? I think it was.
Yeah, we are. That's the Kyalami for the final.
And that is another absolutely amazing track, and I think it's also very much a driver's track, and I think that also will put a smile on a lot of these drivers' faces. Billy Octane goes a little bit deep there on the exit of the top of the mountain section. Maybe it gets a little bit of a slide on it. He seems to be doing a little bit of more drifts on these final corners. Maybe the fatigue is settling in slowly, as he has been racing for, give or take, 30 minutes in this race. Sorry, 38 minutes in this race, and he has been racing for about 22 in the last race. So you can see the fatigue sort of slowly setting in, and I think it might be some of the other drivers, but that's also what separates the pros from the silvers. I mean, Billy Octane isn't a pro because he is a brilliantly consistent driver, but some of the silver drivers, the fatigue will set in halfway through a race, and they just won't be able to keep the consistency up that these pro drivers can.
Yeah, and these cars really are. They're a lot more mechanical, and they're a lot more hands-on, as it were, than some of the GT3s. And especially if you've got your sim racing setup, might be one of the, something like a fancy direct drive. You really do start to you notice it on your arms. You don't have to go to the gym after a while if you've done sort of an hour or so around a punishing track in a car that has got particularly heavy steering. And I'm sure trying to manhandle that ocean liner of a Camaro around for a whole championship as well has been no easy feat. It's not a car that is often picked as well. The Camaro, I've noticed, you really rarely see it in a competitive GT4 league. Most times you see sort of the usual suspects: Porsche, the Aston Martin, and your other sort of, and the BMW, of course, the regular cars to pick. It's nice to see one, though, at least, in the same way that I'm happy that we've had a few Alpines in this season, and a KTM. We started with 2, we've down to 1, but Luke Wigg in the 499, maybe not been his day, but he is still going around at least, and that's really what counts. He's taking the checkered flag at the end of the day.
Yeah, that was yeah, it's been absolutely a pleasure to watch. And Luke Wigg, he was brilliant in Brands Hatch, if I remember correctly. The rain sort of kicked in at the end, that he struggled with it. But that KTM, I think he's really struggled, as it was in Monza as well, where there was rain again, where it sort of shined a bit. But it's sort of the difference in these cars and on the tracks is huge. And we see Thiago Lima down the back straight, and actually looks like Martin Lawrence has a little bit of damage. So he's had a little bit of contact somewhere at some point. But it's not enough to make him lose that P1 position, as he is rounding the final few corners now. And with only 5 seconds to go, he won't be able to extend it this time around. And he is going to come across the line, flashing his lights, and that is, I believe, Tom Bryant staying behind, so he doesn't have to do an extra lap here. He comes across the line. Martin Lawrence wins race 2 here at Bathurst.
Yeah, and what a victory for him. Both races were almost lights to flag victories. Benny Harwood as well, in the 507, doing a phenomenal job to fend off the 101 of Tiger Lima, who comes in third. Rosso wins Silver Cup after a very convincing drive in the race 2 as well. And Shelgren is P2 over that. Billy Octane and Andy Boardman coming across the line 5 and 6. Chris Rubelar, after his phenomenal recovery drive, finishes 7th. And like I say, you cannot really knock that after such a recovery drive.
He's just snaking down the whole straight.
I mean, it has to be done, hasn't it? Sometimes Martin Lawrence with a monumental drift. I didn't know that BMW could drift that good. I don't think that the Alpine is going to try that, though. I think the Alpine would I think the Alpine would die if he tries it, but definitely. I mean, if you pay Pirelli for the tires, you've got to use them up, haven't you? You're not going to give them back with good rubber. You need to use them all up.
Yeah, as the drone zooms out on the track and just shows how amazing this track is, and also how big it is as well. Mount Panorama Bathurst, what an amazing race is produced, both race one and race two, and I believe that's also this race is enough for Thiago Lima to win the championship. So he is your championship winner, Thiago Lima of the GT4 series.
It's mathematically impossible now, and basically, he just has to, if he wants, could turn up to Kyle Army and just have some fun, basically. But that was that, and with the final car, I think it is Luke Wig just about crossing the line now. That will be everyone have taken the checkered flag, and that will be positions given. So I've been told that we have to be quick, as you can see some of the people already starting to take down some of the microphones as we speak. So it's been a phenomenal race, and thank you all for joining us. As he says, please like, comment, subscribe, and share all of this. Some phenomenal racing coming up, and I've been Ryan Moss, and Christian Stricker has very kindly joined me, and Mike Jones doing the cameras. Hopefully, we'll see you next time at Kyle Army, where I won't be here. You'll have Jesse Lee for that one, as I am vacant. But hopefully, you'll join us for that for the finale of some GT4 action.